Hello everyone, welcome to coderinboots. So today we are going to discuss a new topic. It's basically the Flyway database migrations. So before getting into the Flyway, let's discuss about what is database migration. Okay, so as software engineers, so most of us develop applications. Okay, so like in there are various streams in software engineering. I'm talking about application development. So in case of application development, most of us are familiar with version control system. So how we basically do the code version management, release management, etc. So think about the scenario that let's say we are building an application, a web application for smart city with the name smart city. Okay, smart city app. Okay, so this is the application smart city app, and there are a set of developers working towards to get this smart city app ready. Okay, so let's say developer 1. Okay, so developer 1 is working on per one. Okay, so he is working in his laptop. Okay, so he has basically he develops a piece of code, and okay, and similarly similar to developer 1, there is another guy, developer 2. Okay, so he also developed his part. Okay, so this is code and this is code. And coming to before even discussing further, coming to the basically the architecture of smart city app, think about it as a simple web application. So it has web UI, so assume like it is in Angular. Okay, so backend APIs, so which is in Python, and DB database, which is in MySQL. Okay, so it uses three technologies: Angular based web UI, Python based backend APIs, and MySQL database. Okay, so the application metadata is stored in the MySQL database. And the developer 1, okay, so developer 1 is a Python developer. Okay, so developer 2 is again another Python developer. Okay, and think about developer 3. So he is like let's say a UI developer, Angular developer. Okay, three. Okay, so this guy is Angular. So with the version control systems like GitLab, GitHub, Azure DevOps, so with all these, the version control or version management of the code is very easy. Okay, so what they do is, think about, assume they all commit the code to a central repository which is located in GitLab. Okay, so they all commit to their commits are getting committed to develop a branch develop. Okay, so assume like we have two repositories, so one for the UI and one for the backend, and it has a branch develop. Okay, so the code is committed here. Okay, so once this basically they get a version out of it, it is basically deployed to, assume, the environments. Okay, the deployment environments. So deployment environment, the first environment will be dev. Okay, so dev environment, so basically it will have what? It will have a place to deploy the code, and there will be a database for the dev system, right? So that will be the dev DB. Okay, so similarly, once the dev phase is complete, what will happen is it will go to the test QA environment. Okay, so it will go to the QA, and once QA is complete, so QA also will have what? QA also will have a database, and once QA is complete, okay, So it will basically move to QA. So there will be like, I mean, so in Git basically there will be tags, everything, but I'm just giving a simple example. So once like, I mean, the QA phase is over, it will basically go to the prod phase. Production also will have a database. And there will be various versions of this application code. Okay, so as part of this, there will be various versions of the application code. We can say like v1, v2, maybe v1.1, v1.2, v1.3, or v2 3.0. So like this, there will be various application versions. Okay, so that will be the backend and the front end code. There will be application versions maintained, and these releases will be deployed to the environments properly. But the challenge here is how we are going to maintain the versions of the schema in the database. Okay, so the problem here is, the question here is, how are you going to manage this guy? Because if you see the updates that these guys are making, the developers are making, they will be committing the codes to the GitHub, but schema, mostly what they do is they will apply the changes to DB. Okay, so the database migration from one environment to the another environment, it is mostly manual. So in several projects that I have worked on, so metadata management was one of the trickiest part. The reason is, if somebody makes an updates in the column and if they don't record that change, what will happen is the code will get migrated, but the metadata change won't get migrated. And once the migrated version gets deployed, we will start seeing errors and again troubleshoot. Finally, we will identify, okay, there is some change in the metadata. We'll have to apply the metadata change to as part of like, I mean, the version migration. So in order to handle these kind of problems, okay, so the solution that we have is Flyway. Okay, so Flyway is an open source tool. So basically it comes with a community edition and it comes with an enterprise edition. So community edition is free to use, and enterprise edition, there is a license associated with it. So what it performs is, it basically provides an easy way to perform the database migration, just like the way we do the version control in the code. Okay, code means the backend, front end. Okay, so the entire application code. So in this way, it will become very easy to handle the changes, the change management or the version controls associated with the metadata. Okay, so let's see how this works. Okay, so in case of Flyway, so how the version control is maintained is, basically Flyway has two concepts. The migrations, they are categorizing it into one is version to migrations. Okay, version to migration. Then second is repeatable migration. So version to migrations are something called, so let's say like, I mean, I have a metadata script. Okay, something like create table ABC. Okay, A int B varchar. Okay, so this is a script. Okay, so then let's say like, I mean, I am doing another v2 script, which is maybe like, I mean, some insert. Okay, so maybe v3, it could be an update. Okay, so what will happen is v1.sql, it's a SQL script. Okay, so each of this, or it could be a combination of scripts as well. Each version the SQL file will have a SQL script or a multiple SQL scripts. So what we will do is, we will have a track of the changes that is getting applied to the database. So what will happen is, let's say we have a DB here. Okay, and every changes that is basically happening on top of the SQL DB, okay, will be versioned. So let's say the first change that is going to happen is v1, then v2 will happen, v3 will happen, v4 will happen. Okay, so finally, let's say if you want to understand all the changes that happen to DB, then what we have this v1, v2, v3, v4. If you take all these four SQLs, you can replicate the same state. Okay, so instead of v1, 2, 3, 4, let's version in a different way. Let's say my application version is v1. Okay, so at that time I'll have metadata associated with SQL script v1. Okay, and applying changes. Okay, so every change what I'll do, the next change will be v1.1. Okay, the next further change will be everything associated with version 1 of application. I am basically getting scripts with v1 dot something. Okay, and let's say my application is in v2 version. So now I'll have again v2. Okay, dot 0, and basically this v2.0 will be applied on top of v1. Okay, so we will have a track of the series of changes that is getting applied to the DB. So we will have, so if you will be able to restore or retain the state of this application at any point of time. So if you want to basically roll back to a previous version of your application, what you need, you just need to apply the version scripts till that particular point. Okay, so if you apply the scripts till that point, what will happen? You will be able to restore the application with the code. Your code anyway is available in the Git. If you take the metadata from the Flyway, the version scripts, you will be able to restore the application at till that point. Okay, so this is the advantage. So version to script means, version to migration means any script which basically has a version. Okay, so which will be incremental, applied incrementally. So that is something called version to migration. Repeatable migration, this is something mostly that so almost all the DDLs. Okay, so DDLs, I usually keep it in the version migration pattern. Okay, so in repeatable migration, what you usually do is basically the sequence that performs or refreshes some table. Refreshes some table means, let's say I have a published table. I wanted to refresh the published table data with the latest data in some other set of tables. Okay, my raw layers or something. So in that case, what I'll do, I'll be doing insert into this published table, select star from the raw table. Okay, so and this will have to happen again and again. So in this case, I'll do repeatable migration. So before discussing about repeatable, I'll tell you how the version to migration or how Flyway internally handles the version to migration. So when Flyway gets a SQL, so what it will do is, SQL file, what it will do is, it will basically take the checksum. It's doing basically CRC checksum. It will take the checksum of the file. So checksum of the file and stores the checksum. So Flyway internally maintains the metadata in a small database. Okay, database table, and stores the file name and checksum. So checksum means if the content of the file changes, what will happen? The checksum also will change. That means, let's say if I'm placing a file, a script with v1, so I can trust v1 till its metadata changes. If metadata of v1 changes, means there is some modification happen to v1. So Flyway does not allow any modification to an existing versioned file. So for the next change, Flyway is expecting a next higher version than the previous version, so that it will pick up that file and execute it. And it will not execute the previously executed versioned files. So that is how it works. But in case of repeatable migration, what it will do is, repeatable migration, the script starts with R. Okay, and version to migration, the script starts with capital V. Okay, and repeatable, it is capital R. These are all configurable. So we can configure, let's say if you want it in some other way, we can configure these prefixes in the Flyway configuration. Okay, so but these are like, the default prefix that we need to follow. So you have to follow like capital V for version file, capital R for repeatable migration, and in the case of version file, we need to specify a version. So you can specify version something like v001.0. Okay, or you can give version like v1.0. Okay, or v1. Okay, so it's up to you. And after that, once you have v and then the version number, okay, then you need to put double underscore. Double underscore is a separator between this version and the name of the file, okay, or the description of the file. You can put like, create table.sql. Okay, so what will happen is, Flyway will read this file, v for version, 1.0 for the version of the file, and underscore, this is separator. So the next part is the description. of that particular SQL. So it will pick up this file, it will identify the checksum, it will store this metadata in the system, and then it will execute this and apply the changes to the table. Okay, this is how it works. In case of repeatable, what will happen is there is no version associated with the repeatable migration file. The file name starts with capital R and then underscore underscore, then maybe like the description. So this is mostly used as in associated, as part of DMLs. So it could be like some refresh on top of a table or a view or something like that. Okay, so then there is something called undo migration. Okay, in case of undo migration, what will happen is this is something like, let's say if you want to undo a version, okay, so you can use undo migration. In this case, what will happen, the file name starts with U, then there will be version, then there will be like the description. So this will undo an already applied version on this database. Okay, so this is how Flyway works, and Flyway has like around less than 10 commands. Okay, if you see, it's a very simple tool, but it is a very powerful tool, because if you see the user adoption of Flyway in the recent past, you will see like a large set of users are using it. It's because it's very useful. Okay, I myself is using in several projects of mine, because it is very useful and it is very easy to get started with or implement in a project. So if you implement this, what will happen is the developers will also like become disciplined in managing the metadata. So you don't have to do so much of headache or apply so much, you don't have to get into the headaches of managing the metadata if you have something like Flyway. Okay, so I hope this is clear. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to comment below this video. So I'll be basically get back to creating another video with the installation steps of Flyway, so and how to basically use Flyway in a practical project. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much.